Welcome to Clash Corner, your daily dose of chaos.
I accidentally humiliated my online friend when she visited me. I'd like to start by saying I do feel really bad about this. My friend is American and she's always wanted to come to the Netherlands, where I'm from. We've been online friends for like 3 years, but I didn't know what she looked like until about a year ago. Keep in mind I'd never seen her full body till now, only selfies. When she told me she wanted to visit, I was like, that's so fun. Why not come stay with me? What I did not consider is that you have to take stairs to get up to my apartment, and those stairs are in fact quite narrow. Regular-sized people can fit through, but it's not exactly wide. When I saw my friend in real life when I met her, she was bigger than I expected, honestly. But I'm obviously not gonna say that, so we drove back to my place just chatting and having a good time. But when we got to my building's front door, I saw her expression kind of deflate, and I honestly did not even connect the dots until I unlocked it. Then I was like, oh no, she's not fitting up these stairs. I felt so bad. I offered if she wanted to just go get a vacation rental together or something and I'd cover half, but she just left and hasn't spoken to me even though she's still in the country. She spoke to another one of our mutual friends saying I only brought her to my place to mess with her, which is so far from the truth. I've been dying with how guilty I feel and I don't know how to make it better. How would you even fix something like this?
Ready for more? Here comes Clash number 2.
My ex invited me to her wedding and humiliated me in front of everyone. My ex-girlfriend invited me to her wedding. I didn't expect what she had planned for me. My ex-girlfriend invited me to her wedding. It was unexpected, but I accepted. The invitation said the people who were allowed to bring a +1 were married or engaged couples. I was not engaged or married, so I went alone. I managed to couple up with another single guy at the wedding and stayed with him throughout the ceremony to avoid looking like I didn't belong. The two of us got separated at the reception because we were allocated to different tables. My table only had single people. As we got to know one another, we realized we had one specific thing in common. We were all exes of the bride. It was a little weird, but we made a joke of it because we assumed that was the point of us being there. Fast forward to the speeches. When it was the bride's turn to speak, she asked all of her exes to stand up, which we did. She informed the audience that we were the people she dated and disappointed over the years before she discovered the love of her life, her husband. She wanted us to know how grateful she was to have been with all of us, but then she locked eyes with me and said maybe not all of us. She said my name and asked me to wave at everyone. I waved like an idiot. She warned all the women at the wedding to watch out for me because I literally peed on her. The husband stood up at that moment and covered the microphone with his hand while he whispered something to his wife that made her look confused. The bride sat down without saying anything else. The husband made an awkward joke about his wife having too much champagne and instructed us to please take our seats. The DJ intervened and asked if any of the groom's exes were also in the house, which actually made the audience laugh. The music played and everyone pretended none of that just happened. Except for me. I got out of there as soon as the lights dimmed for the disco ball. Would you have stayed or left?
The chaos doesn't stop. Clash number 3.
I left my mom at the airport after she refused to leave my house. I drove my mom to the airport and left her there, even though she hadn't booked a flight. This still weighs on me. Some background. My mom was abusive growing up. It got bad enough that at 12, I left home through the courts and moved in with my dad. That decision fractured our family. On the court paperwork, under name of child, she wrote something like, I have no son. I've carried that with me ever since. I had little contact with her after that. Briefly at 17, again in my early 20s, and not consistently until much later. I'm now almost 40. I spent over 20 years drinking heavily and finally got sober in 2018, which is when I made an effort to reconnect with my family, including my mom. She's closer to 70 now and has zero contact with 2 of her 3 kids. Reconnecting wasn't easy. When I asked if she ever reflected on the abuse, she told me I was an adult and needed to let it go already. That was a turning point. I realized any forgiveness would be one-sided. If I wanted peace, it was on me. Since then, our relationship has been rocky, but present. We've had family reunions and even traveled overseas together for 3 weeks. We argue often, usually over small things, but we stayed in contact until this. Last summer, I invited her to my city to see a band she's loved since I was young. The plan was simple. She'd arrive on Wednesday, we'd go to the concert on Thursday, she'd fly out to visit my sisters on Friday, and I'd leave early Saturday for my own trip. She agreed. When she arrived, she mentioned she'd only bought a one-way ticket and would book the Friday flight later. That made me uneasy, and I reminded her several times to make sure it was booked. I thought I was clear in my wording and tone that I didn't want anyone staying in my house while I was gone. Friday came. The concert was fine. Then she told me she still hadn't bought a plane ticket, and now, with prices having gone up, she planned to stay a few extra days while I was away. I told her plainly, I'm leaving at 5 a.m. tomorrow. You need to get on that plane. I even offered to cover the extra cost. She refused and invited herself to stay at my place. That's when I said clearly that I wasn't comfortable with anyone staying in my home while I wasn't there. She accused me of not trusting her and said she was my mother. I said it wasn't about trust. I just didn't want anyone in my house. The argument escalated. Finally, she said, fine. Take me to the airport. I think she expected me to cave. I didn't. I packed the car, grabbed my daughter, and drove her to the airport in silence. When we arrived, it felt like a standoff, like she was waiting for me to say, never mind, don't go. I didn't. I took her bag out, set it on the curb, and told her, if you can't find a ticket, let me know. I can help you pay for a hotel. Then I left. Months later, I'm still thinking about it. I don't think I stranded my mom with no options. I offered to cover the cost of the flight and hotel. But I did leave her at the airport knowing she hadn't booked a ticket. Did I go too far, or was I right to hold my boundary?
Another clash is on the way. Here's number 4.
My husband left me after 16 years for a younger woman. We were married for 16 years and have 3 kids. Then he started going to the gym, and 5 months later, he asked for a divorce. We were married for 16 years and have 3 kids. I'm 40, he's 39. He was always sweet and understanding, contributed to the housework, took care of me when I was sick, and I did the same. Always affectionate and caring. Never gave me the impression that he wasn't happy. Then he started going to the gym, meal prepping chicken, and 5 months later met a 25-year-old woman. That was the only time he was distant with me. It only went on for a month, then he asked for divorce and told me that he wants to be with this girl. I asked if I could do anything to save our marriage, and he said he just likes her more than me and wants to be with her. He's not being a jerk about it. Willing to be generous in the divorce, not trying to fight me on everything. Just like that, he's just gone. Left everything we built together for a girl he barely knows. How do you even process something like this?
Chaos overload. Let's wrap up this final clash.
I had to make an impossible choice during a storm. I stayed at my wife's family's property this week because of severe weather in our region, and I had to make a decision that might have cost me my marriage. I stayed at my wife's family's property this week because of severe weather in our region. They raise horses and import many of them from overseas. After the snow and ice hit, all the horses came in except for an older one named Shadow, who was one of her horses she learned to ride on as a kid. He was in his mid-20s and she was very close to him. She kind of played it off, since he was known for being a little stubborn and would usually come back to the stables on his own time. But my father-in-law was clearly concerned, and I grew up next to a cattle farm, so I understood what might happen in those situations. When he didn't come back the next morning, we went out to search. I brought my rifle just in case it turned into an emergency situation. Unfortunately, it was. I'll keep the details limited here, but it looked like he got spooked by something, ran through fencing, and fell down a 15-foot embankment next to a creek. It was really bad. Shadow was in full instinctual panic mode in a spot that was extremely hard to reach with all the ice. My wife was completely inconsolable, crying and screaming. I called her dad and told him we found Shadow. He basically said, I can call the vet and they can be out there in 3 to 4 hours, or I can go ahead and call the warden or sheriff to let him know and I'll get the tractor out there. I knew what that response meant. So I did what I had to do. I wish nobody ever had to do something like that, but it was genuinely the most humane thing I could do in that situation. I'll spare the details, but I made sure it was quick and he didn't suffer even for a second. But my wife will absolutely not talk to me right now. She was so angry at me because I didn't let her hug him and say goodbye. I know she understands that was not physically possible in the situation, and I know she's just coping with tragedy. But I'm currently sleeping on the couch in her family's basement and she hasn't left her bedroom at her parents' place in a day and a half. I just want to be there for her. I feel terrible, and it messes with me in the head having to do that. I get it, but there was no other choice. I have now spoken with her. She woke me up around 2 in the morning. She is still very upset, but I got her to calm down and fall asleep, which is good because I could tell she wasn't sleeping much. After talking to her, I'm pretty certain she went into shock because she didn't really seem to comprehend how bad the situation was. I think that's probably good because she won't remember that part. It wasn't pretty. It's bad enough that it's been giving me really bad anxiety, and I think I slept 2 hours and haven't been able to go back to sleep since she woke me up. Have you ever had to make an impossible choice like this? How do you live with it?
That was today's chaos. See you at the next clash. Don't just watch the clash, join the corner. Subscribe now.